You're listening to Swift News, your daily news briefing in just 10 minutes. This is episode 50, and it's June 22, 2025. Let's get into today's stories.
Okay, welcome to the deep dive. So you just heard that really rapid-fire intro from Swift News. What we do here is take that quick snapshot and, well, zoom right in.
Yeah, we want to pull out the key insights, the stuff that really matters, the things that help you actually understand what's going on behind the headlines.
Exactly. Because there's always more to the story. Today, June 22nd, 2025. Lots happening.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating how much you can unpack from just a few minutes of news. We'll try to connect those dots for you, how stuff happening across the globe might actually, impact your world, your investments maybe, or just the bigger picture of global stability.
All right, let's jump straight into the politics then. Probably the biggest headline-grabbing attention is the progress in Geneva, the Israel-Iran talks, resulting in a 48-hour truce.
Yeah, that is huge news. Even a short truce like that can really take the edge off global tensions. For sure. And for you listening, what does that mean practically? Does it, maybe bring down energy prices a bit?
Well, potentially, yes. It's very significant. Markets hate uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
So even a temporary calm down can change the mood dramatically. The risk premium that gets built into oil prices, it can deflate pretty quickly. Traders might back off those hedges against disruption. So yeah, you could actually feel that change, maybe even at the gas pump sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
It's more about the psychology reset than the actual barrels of oil over just 48 hours.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, shifting gears a bit, over to Asia. India's Prime Minister Modi was leading International Yoga Day celebrations.
Right, in Visakhapatnam. It's framed as promoting wellness and unity.
Yeah, and it's easy to see it as just a cultural event, but it's also a really smart example of cultural diplomacy, isn't it? Soft power in action.
Oh, absolutely. Yoga's got this global appeal now tied to health, well-being. It transcends politics in a way. So by promoting it, India projects this positive, non-threatening image.
Right.
It builds goodwill, strengthens ties kind of under the radar, and just boosts their standing globally. It connects on a personal level, which is often more effective than formal declarations.
Interesting. And sticking with diplomacy, maybe on a smaller scale, Russia apparently agreed to scale back some naval drills in the Pacific.
Yes, which seems to have eased some concerns in Japan.
Feels like a minor thing, maybe. But do these smaller gestures actually make a difference for regional stability?
They really can, yeah. In tense regions, even routine military stuff can be seen as provocative. So pulling back even a little sends a signal. It says, okay, we're willing to de-escalate a bit. It lowers the temperature, reduces the chance of miscalculation, and maybe, just maybe, opens the door for more dialogue down the line. It's about building tiny bits of trust.
Okay. Now let's look at South Africa. A pretty major domestic development there. The president signed a universal healthcare bill.
That's a big move, expanding access for all citizens.
Huge commitment, especially, for an economy like South Africa's. It raises that classic question, doesn't it? How do you pay for something so ambitious?
That's always the central challenge, absolutely. South Africa seems to be making a bet, really, a long-term bet.
On what exactly?
On their people.
Yeah.
The idea is that a healthier, more secure population will eventually be more productive, more stable, and that this will outweigh the upfront costs. It's investing in human capital.
So it's not expecting an immediate economic boom from it, but more of a foundational shift.
Exactly. The returns might take time, but they could be transformative for the society as a whole. Many countries will be watching this for sure.
Right. And one more on the global stage, Australia strengthening trade ties with ICing nations.
Yeah, focusing particularly on tech exports.
Okay, quick reminder for listeners, ICing?
Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Think Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore. A really dynamic bloc of 10 countries.
Got it. So why is this Australia-ASEAN tech focus important?
Well, it taps into a couple of big trends. Diversifying trade away from maybe just one or two major partners, getting into fast-growing markets. And crucially, it highlights how important tech and digital services are in trade now.
It's not just about shipping goods anymore.
Not at all. Digital exports, tech services.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the growth is. It's about building these deeper, more modern economic links.
Okay, so we've seen these political and diplomatic shifts. And you mentioned earlier how the ceasefire news impacts markets. Let's talk business and economy now because, wow, the markets definitely notice.
They certainly did. The Dow climbing 1.2%, NASDAQ up 1.5%.
Yeah.
That's a pretty direct reaction.
Yeah. So for you listening, maybe check your portfolio. Are your investments seeing a bit of a rebound?
And what that surge really shows, I think, is just how much sentiment drives things. Geopolitical risk gets priced in,
Yeah.
right? When there's a signal that risk might be decreasing, even temporarily.
Like the ceasefire.
Exactly. Investors very quickly unprice that risk. It's not always about a company's earnings that day. It's about the overall feeling, the global mood. Optimism returns fast.
Makes sense. Sticking with economics, but shifting focus, India's gender budgeting initiative saw a pretty big jump.
Yeah, up 37% to, what was it, 4.49 lakh crore,
Yeah.
which is roughly 54 billion US dollars, a huge number.
Okay, so gender budgeting, basically making sure government spending benefits everyone fairly, regardless of gender, right? How does that actually drive inclusive growth?
Well, the idea is to target funds specifically, maybe towards programs that boost education for women and girls, improve their healthcare access, or create more economic opportunities.
Okay.
By doing that, you're empowering potentially half the population that might have been held back before.
Huh.
That leads to more people working, earning, contributing, which lifts the whole economy. You're using your country's full potential.
Right, unlocking human capital again. Meanwhile, on the global trade front, China's electric vehicle exports are up 10%.
Yep, and that's posing a real challenge, particularly for European car makers.
What's behind that surge? Is it just price?
It's a mix of things. China invested massively in battery tech early on. They control a lot of the key raw materials. Plus, they have a huge domestic market, which helps scale up production and bring costs down.
So established players in Europe and elsewhere, they need to react.
They absolutely do. They need to innovate faster, secure their own supply chains, maybe rethink production, or risk losing ground in, what's clearly the future of transport. It's a major competitive shift linked to the green transition.
Okay, let's hop over to South America. Brazil reported record soybean harvests. Good news for them, obviously, but you mentioned it helps stabilize global food prices. How does that work?
Simple supply and demand, really. Brazil is a giant in agricultural exports, especially soybeans. When they have a massive harvest, the total global supply of soy increases significantly.
Yeah.
And since soy is in so many things animal feed, processed foods, more supply, generally helps keep prices down, or at least stops them from rising as fast. So a good harvest in Brazil can literally mean your grocery bill doesn't climb quite so steeply.
Amazing how connected it all is. And finally, in this section, the UK's manufacturing sector seems to be rebounding.
Yeah, and interestingly, it's being driven partly by demand for renewable energy equipment, wind turbines, solar components, that sort of thing.
So this links back to what you're saying about the green transition being an economic driver.
Exactly. It shows that investing in green tech isn't just an environmental policy, it's becoming an industrial strategy. It creates jobs, spurs innovation. It can be a genuine engine for economic recovery.
All right, let's move into technology. And unfortunately, we start with some concerning news. The Air India crash probe focusing on potential Boeing 787 software glitches.
Yeah, that immediately raises red flags about air travel safety, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And our trust in the tech that keeps planes flying.
It really does. What does an incident like this tell us about our reliance on complex software?
It tells us we need extreme vigilance. When software is critical for safety planes, medical devices, you name it, the testing, the certification, the ongoing reviews have to be incredibly rigorous. There's just no room for error. It underlines the need for global standards and constant oversight.
Definitely sobering. On a brighter note, though, Google has an AI cybersecurity tool out there for small businesses.
Right, aimed at making it easier for them to protect themselves from breaches.
That seems really useful. Practical AI. But does widespread AI use in security also create new problems, new vulnerabilities?
That's the double-edged sword, yeah. AI can spot threats faster, automate defenses. But attackers can also use AI, maybe to create more convincing phishing scams or find weak points more quickly. So it pushes us to think really hard about AI governance, ethics, and cybersecurity, making sure these powerful tools are used responsibly.
Right. Looking ahead now, Japan's running 6G trials. Feels like we just got used to 5G.
Yeah, the pace is relentless. They're aiming for a rollout around 2030.
Why so fast? What does 6G even promise beyond, faster cat videos?
Well, it's driven by the explosion of data, AI, the Internet of Things. 6G isn't just about speed, though it'll be massively faster, think terabits per second. It's also about things like hyper-accurate location tracking, built-in sensing.
Like the network itself can sense things.
Kind of, yeah. Imagine truly seamless augmented reality, Real-time holographic calls, maybe fully autonomous systems communicating instantly. It's about blurring the lines between the physical and digital worlds even more.
Wow. Okay. And one more tech breakthrough. A U.S. startup with a new quantum chip.
Yes, claiming it could cut some computing costs by 15%.
Now, quantum computing still feels a bit sci-fi. What's the significance of a step like this?
It's a sign that technology is maturing, becoming more practical. Quantum computers work fundamentally differently than regular ones, using qubits. They promise to solve problems that are impossible for even the best supercomputers today.
Like what kind of problems?
Drug discovery, designing new materials, complex financial modeling. A 15% cost reduction might sound small, but it suggests we're getting closer to unlocking that potential, which could have huge economic and scientific impacts down the road.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's switch it up completely. Sports.
Always a good topic.
India's javelin star, Neeraj Chopra, won the Paris Diamond League. Great throw, 88.16 meters.
Yeah, boosting his chances for the Zurich final. He's a huge star back home.
Absolutely. And the big question is always, can he defend his Olympic gold from Tokyo? It's that amazing mix of individual excellence and national pride.
It really is. And speaking of stars and big money in sports, Liverpool apparently signed Florian Wirtz, the German player.
Yes, for a reported record fee, 116 million.
Wow. That just shows the sheer scale of money flowing through top-level football, doesn't it? The Premier League is just an economic powerhouse. Yeah. These athletes are huge assets in a global entertainment industry.
Definitely. Moving on to entertainment and culture. A popular Indian TV show, Bait Achalak Dahain, had its season premiere on Sony Livin.
And drew millions of viewers, right?
Yeah, it really shows how powerful these regional shows can be. They tap into something specific.
They do. Often it's cultural details, language, everyday situations that really resonate with a local audience in a way a global blockbuster might not. They build a strong sense of shared identity. And streaming platforms help these shows find huge audiences now.
True. And elsewhere, in Nigeria, a big Afrobeats festival in Lagos.
Highlighting rising talent. Afrobeats just keeps getting bigger globally, doesn't it?
It really seems unstoppable.
Yeah, it's a great example of specific genre breaking out. It's not just music. It influences fashion, dance, often spread initially by diaspora communities, then amplified by streaming. Festivals like the one in Lagos are key to cementing its place as a major global force.
Okay, let's turn to environment and science. We had a solar flare reported.
From sunspot AR4114, yeah. Caused some disruption to satellite signals.
Things were expected to calm down, but it's a good reminder, isn't it? How events in space can directly affect our tech down here.
Absolutely. It really makes you think about how dependent we are on satellites for GPS, communications, weather, everything. Space weather is something we have to take seriously. Our high-tech world is still vulnerable to nature.
And closer to Earth, unfortunately, flash floods in India's Odisha state,
affecting around 50,000 people due to heavy rains.
Just a stark reminder of the immediate human impact of extreme weather events, which seem to be happening more often.
It is. But on a more positive environmental note, Canada reported some success with its wind energy expansion.
Right, cutting emissions by 10% in some key regions.
Exactly. It shows tangible progress. It demonstrates that investing in renewables can deliver real results, not just promises. It's proof that the transition can work.
That's good to hear. Finally, let's rack up with some events and human stories that offer a bit of inspiration.
Always good to end on these.
First up, a Bangladeshi engineer developed a low-cost flood barrier.
Protecting coastal villages. That's fantastic local ingenuity, solving local problems with global implications. Practical solutions making a real difference.
Exactly. And in the U.S., a teacher STEM program reached 10,000 underserved students.
Which connects right back to what we were saying about human capital. Education, especially in science and tech, fuels future innovation. Those kids might be the ones solving the next big challenge.
We also heard about an Indian nurse running a mobile health clinic in remote Himalayan communities.
Incredible dedication. Bringing healthcare to places where it's incredibly hard to access, overcoming huge geographical barriers.
Truly inspiring. And lastly, a Mexican farmer who developed a sustainable irrigation system.
Boosting local crop yields. Again, it's about practical, sustainable solutions at the grassroots level. Improving food security, improving lives, often using simple, smart ideas.
So when you pull it all together from this single day's news, it's quite a tapestry. We've gone from global diplomacy affecting your wallet to tech breakthroughs like quantum chips to the power of music and these really inspiring individual efforts.
Yeah, it really shows how interconnected everything is. Politics, economics, technology, culture, environment, individual lives. It's all woven together. Unpacking even a short news brief like SwiftNews reveals that complex web, the constant push and pull between challenges and progress.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about beyond just the
It
headlines.
does. So here's a final thought for you. This deep dive shows how much insight is hidden just beneath the surface. As you go about your day tomorrow, what's the subtle shift or maybe the quiet innovation that you might notice now, sparked by something you heard today that you might otherwise have just skimmed past?